We have a couple new additions to the team at RoomKey. This year in 2015, our focus is on enhancing customer service and enhancing the RoomKey product itself. We've hired a new director of customer experience. His name is Rod Kawamoto, and he is can be reached. We'll give you an email address for him, and he'll be in charge of both the CS team and the training team, and reports to myself. And we've also added Brock Martin, who's an account manager. So he's an additional resource for all existing RoomKey customers. So if you ever have any questions about new products, new services, add-ons, or interfaces, he's also available. And we'll give you those email addresses at the end of this webinar. And we also are focusing on our product roadmap and enhancing some additional features on the RoomKey product. So that's a main focus for us this year. And we'll be watch for the release emails that you receive from us, which will have details on the new features and how to use those. I know there's also a follow-up webinar this Friday following this one about implementation and how to use the how to implement the rates wizard at your property. That's Friday at 10 a.m. And then on the sales and marketing side, we also have two additional webinars coming up. One later this month on the product Guest Driven, which is a new partner product that we're offering, which is an enhanced marketing product that allows to have custom apps for your property, as well as a advanced check-in for upsell and for selling distressed inventory. And in March, we're going to have a webinar on point-of-sale systems. So if you're looking to refresh your point-of-sale systems, we have a partner, Skywire, who we resell their point-of-sale systems. They have some great pricing and a lot of different options, including mobile point-of-sale. And so we're going to be covering some of those off. And if you want information about either of those products prior to those webinars, you can reach out to our sales team at sales@roomkeypms.com. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Rosamund to kick off the Rates Wizard training. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Terry. Good morning, everybody. We are going to start with our Rates Wizard webinar. As you know, this is a webinar that is for Rate Wizard, and that is our new rates management tool. We are going to look at how to create a rate. We're going to look at how to use your booking channels. We'll be adding rates to room types, attaching client types and corporate accounts to different rates. We'll look at how to use the grid and how we can use that to simplify your rates going forward. And we're looking at closures and lengths of stays. So I'm going to start off by showing you what we can, or where we can find your Rate Wizard. So your Rate Wizard is going to be under Systems Configuration and Rate Wizards, which is just above the old Rate Wizard. Now the old rate is going to be going away. We'll give you lots of notice when we were going to do away with our old rate, but going forward, all new rates should be built in your Rate Wizard. So if you do not have access to the Rate Wizard, it is permission-based, so you would need to get hold of your systems configurator and ask them to please add you to the systems configuration in your correct permissions so that you will have access to the Rate Wizard. Once you can access the Rate Wizard, once you press on Rate Wizard, you're going to find that you are now looking at our dashboard for Rate Wizard. And on the dashboard, we are able to see all of the different rates that we have set up in our system. We're able to see which different booking channels these rates are going to be available for. And we can also see whether these rates have been set up as daily, weekly, or monthly rates. So it's a quick way for you to look immediately at your rates and determine what rates you have and also which rates are tiered. Once we want to start building new rates, what we need to do is there are 3 different steps to building a rate. So the 3 buttons on the bottom of the screen will take us through those 3 steps. So we're going to start off with the plus sign, which allows us to create the shell for our new rate. So once we click on the plus sign, the first thing I'm going to do is kind of talk you through what we're looking at on this screen so that it will make sense to you. We'll work chronologically down the screen, And you'll notice that our first option is for rate categories. So the rate category basically allows us to create our own, and this will be for each property, your own unique categories. Now, some people will go with one category to one rate name, and that's fine. Some people will use categories to show, for instance, GDS rates versus hotel direct rates versus discount rates versus corporate rates. So you can build whatever rate categories you would like for yourself. I'm going to use this standard rate as we're just going to build a basic rate in RoomKey. The next thing is going to be our rate name. Now, the rate name will display on any documentation that is produced by RoomKey and sent to your clients. So, for instance, your confirmations or your folios will all show the rate name. So we want to make sure that our rate name is something that the guest is going to understand. So I'm going to call this rate is going to be basically our hotel rate. So some people have best available rates, some people have corporate rates that actually have the name of the company. This is going to be a basic rate that will be our hotel rate. The booking channels are now listed below. So we have Hotel Direct, we have Hotel Website. So our hotel website is referring specifically to the RoomKey eRes module. So if we're building a rate that we want to be available on RoomKey's eRes, we need to make absolutely sure that we have hotel website checked off. GDS is obviously if you want this rate to be available through your booking channels for your GDS. And CRS is RoomKey's specific central reservation service. If you do not have this module, you can just remove the check mark, and that means that we will not be creating a rate that's available through our central reservation system. What RoomKey is actually doing is creating one rate called hotel rate, but in the background it's creating 3 different shadow rates that will be available for use through these different booking channels. Next, we're going to look at the more details. So the more details basically allows me to specify if the rate that I'm building will be applied to all different rate types. If I don't want to include my suite in this particular rate, by removing the check mark, it will allow me to only build a rate that will apply to the 3 top rates. We can take this one step further by not only specifying a room type, but we can also specify booking channels. So for instance, if I'm building this rate, but I did not want this rate to be available on my GDS, I can remove the GDS check mark, and now I would build a rate for my Hotel Direct website and GDS for the first 3 room types, but the last room type, my suite, would not be available on the GDS. So it really depends how you want to sell your rooms, but you have full flexibility here to determine not only by room type, but also by booking channel, how we are going to build these rates. In this case, I want to use all of my room types, so I'm going to make sure that I have my check mark for all room types, and I'm going to apply, and now that is going to apply all room types to all 3 of the booking channels that I have checked off. You're also going to see that we have a lock-off, a special rate, and a hotel website sort order, and a number to sell. These only apply if you do have our eRes booking package. So if you do, the lock-off will allow you to create lock-off rates that are visible on your eRes. You can also use special rates here, and special rates will allow you to, if you have a promotion, you can include not only the promotion but the hotel rate as well on the website. The sort order will allow you to override the alphabetical order of rates, and the number of to sell will allow you to limit the number of this rate that are sold on a daily basis over the eRes booking portal. The next thing we're going to look at is cutoff days. So the cutoff days actually is used with advanced purchase rates, and allows you to specify the number of days in advance that you will be able to see this rate. So if this rate specifically applied for a 14-day advance booking, if I was booking a reservation that was coming in April or May, I would be well within my cutoff dates, and therefore I would be able to show the hotel rate. If I was booking to come in tomorrow, obviously if this said 14 days, I would not be within that 14-day window, so therefore this rate would just not display for me. So this does allow you to have quite a lot of control over your cutoff days for an advanced purchase rate. The next thing we're going to look at is maximum number of persons and maximum length of stay. Now your maximum persons is also driven in RoomKey through your room inventory, where you can specify the maximum number of people that are allowed to go per room type. This maximum person is specifically related to this rate. So if this was a Valentine's Day rate and you only wanted a maximum of 2 people for this rate, then you would by all means specify 2 people in here. And if we tried to book this rate for 3 people, it would tell us, even though the room type would accept more than 3 people, if the rate is set up to only allow 2 people, it will give you a message that warns you that this rate is only good for 2 people. If you are not concerned about how many people you are booking and you want to let RoomKey specify whether there's the right number of people in a room and we're not going over that number, then you would leave this maximum persons blank. Likewise, this length of stay, maximum length of stay, this is also driven by the rate itself. So if you wanted to have a rate that on specific days there was a minimum maximum length of stay, we would not put it here, because this is going to apply to all the date ranges within this specific rate. So if I want to control my minimum and maximum length of stays based on specific date ranges within the year for this rate, I would make sure that I leave this blank. The minimum persons, we do need to put 1 in here because we need to have at least 1 person on a reservation in order to make it a valid reservation. And we also need to have at least 1 night on a reservation for it to be a valid reservation. When you build rates in RoomKey, you can build them period based on daily, weekly, or monthly. Please be aware that if you do use weekly and monthly, you do need to have a transaction code that is set up to repeat daily, weekly, or monthly. You also need to be aware that a weekly rate will bill every 7 days. So it's not going to bill each day. It will bill the first day, and then on the 14th day, and on the 21st day for a weekly rate. And a monthly rate will bill on the 30th day, the 60th day, and the 90th day. So that will have an effect on your ADR and your RevPAR. If you want to have a daily rate, or a weekly rate rather, that bills daily, what I would suggest to you is you leave this as daily, but make your minimum length of stay 7 days. And what that will do is means that someone cannot bill or cannot book this rate on a daily basis. They have to book at least 7 days. And then you can put a policy in place that will say that you collect the 7 days up front if you want them to prepay. But because the period is daily, what will happen is RoomKey will actually post the revenue daily so that your ADR and your RevPAR, TrevPAR will all be correct. If you want to speak further about weekly and monthly rates, please feel free to call our support department, and they will put you through to a trainer that we can schedule some time for you to go through weekly and monthly rates in more detail. Market segments is actually what we call a self-building lookup. So as soon as you put something in here on this screen, it will now be there forever for you to use going forward. So if you do have defined market segments, You can enter them in here if you want to, and then going forward, you are going to find that these rates, that these will be there for you the next time that you use a lookup. Both of them will be there for you. So I'm going to use the market segment leisure. The base rate you will not use for your rates right now. The description is going to be a description of your rate that will appear on ERES if you use our ERES booking, and it will also appear on your front desk when a new clerk, or when a clerk makes a new reservation. They can right-click on the rate type description, and it will populate with anything that is in here. So if this rate includes Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, and parking, once you put this in here, it is now going to be accessible at front desk, and it will be accessible also through ERES. So once you've got everything here the way that you would like it to be, we are going to press Create, and that is now going to create the shell for us in our Rate Wizard. So you'll now notice I have a shell telling me my booking channels and telling me that it is a daily rate. The second step we're going to take is the Edit, which is a little piece of paper with a pen on it, and this allows us now to go back into the shell. So I'm seeing the same screen I looked at when I created, but you'll notice that I now have tabs on the top of the screen that will allow me to associate what client types I want to see this rate, what corporations or what groups I want to see this rate. So when we click on client types, you'll notice that it shows me the 3 different booking channels, so I can select different client types for different booking channels. So if I click on the plus sign next to my Hotel Direct, it will open up all of the client types that I have set up in the system. What you do want to be careful not to do is to click on the plus sign next to Hotel Direct. If you do that, it's actually going to put a check mark in every single client type, which is not necessarily what you want. So you want to open up the Hotel Direct booking channel, and I want that to be available to my independent travelers. On my hotel website, I want this to be available for online booking, and on my GDSs, I want it to be available to my GDSs. So I've actually picked different client types for different booking channels. You can also assign, let me update this first to save it. You can also assign different corporations. Typically, we do not assign client type corporate. If you have one in here called corporate, we don't assign corporate or group client types. The reason for this is that it is now going to show my corporate clients. Every single corporate client would see my hotel rate if I was to click off client type corporate. Specifically, corporations have their own negotiated rates. So when you click on the corporate rate, you'll see that it now shows me the companies that I have set up in the system. So if this rate specifically applied to IBM, then I would have selected the IBM corporate account and not the corporate client type for at the beginning under client type. So in here, you'll notice that when I click on any of my websites, I can see my corporate. And likewise, if I am building group rates, when I go in here and I click on groups, now I actually don't have any groups in this database, but if I click beside here, I would see all of the different groups listed. So in this case, for my Hotel Direct, I have chosen for my hotel rate to only use the client type independent for my Hotel Direct. If you go on my website, I'm letting the online bookings, and if it's the GDS, it's going to come in with a GDS client type whenever you see a rate come in from your GDS. The next step we're going to use is the next button, which is where we're going to actually build the rate. So once we go in and we click on the next button, you'll notice that I now have a list of all of the room types that I selected when I built the shell. You'll also notice that the room types will be displayed based on the order that you selected when the room inventory was set up. So instead of seeing an alphabetical sort here, you could see all of your single rooms, double rooms, suites, kings, queens may all be grouped together based on how your inventory is set up. Once you've got your room type set up here, the first thing we're going to talk about is the grid that we have available in Rate Wizard. So to try and simplify your rate building and your rate changes going forward, we have allowed you to create a grid, which requires you to unlock the grid first, and you can now go in here and set up the differentials between your room types. So if you are building your rates and you say, you know, my rooms are all based off of my single room type, which is $99 a night, and then my doubles are $10 more, my kings are $10 more, but my suite is $50 more, this is where you would utilize this grid. So if I know that my single is my lowest price point, I would leave the differential as 0. If my doubles are $10 more, I would put $10 in and $10 in. If I want to also change my rate based on occupancy, and at triple occupancy I add another $10, then I would want to make sure here that I put my differential of $10 plus my triple occupancy of 10, and this would actually be a $20 difference. And then on quad, I would want to put my $10 and then my $10 per person, so it would be $30 more. Then if I move down now to my kings, if they're also $10 more, I'm just going to put 10 and 10 plus my differential, including my occupancy. And then if my suites are $50 more, I'm going to enter $50 and $50. And then again 60 if there's an additional $10 per person for triple and quad occupancy. Once I've entered this, I can go in and update my template. So once I've updated my template, this template is now locked to my hotel rate. So anytime I come in to change my hotel rate or to change a rate period or a season, I am always going to have these rate differentials available to me. Now, if the rate differentials don't apply at your hotel, and you say, well, it's all over the place, I have no difference really, I just kind of make up the rates as I feel they need to be, then you would still unlock the grid, but you could go in and physically type in the actual amounts that you want to have, single, triple, and quad, by different room types. So you can certainly use that. You don't have to use a template if you don't want to. Once we've set up this template, though, it's now going to allow me, if I want to build a rate, I can go in here and say starting today, and then go through to, I'm actually going to take this through to December this year, and I'm going to take it to December the 31st. I can now go in and say that my rate is going to be $99. So my base rate is $99, and as you'll notice, it's now automatically gone through and applied the differential to each room type to give me the correct rate for each room type. So I just put 99 in here for each room type, and now I have my rate built from now until December the 15th with the right amounts for each of the right room types. If you added more people on after 4 people in the room, you can certainly put 10 in here, and you'll notice that it's now trickled down an additional $10. So if there was 5 people in my suite, my rate is going to be $169 plus $10. And if you charged for children as well, you could certainly put a rate in here. Oh, that's a bit high for a child. Let's put a $5 rate in there. And again, automatically, if RoomKey sees 5 adults and 1 child, it's going to be $179 plus an additional $5 for that child as well. So you can certainly use the extra persons up here if you want to. I'm just going to take those away and basically say my rooms are all based on double occupancy plus an additional 10 for triple and quad, and I don't charge any more after 4 people. Once I've got this all set up, I'm going to click on Update Rates, and then I'm going to click on Save. And what this is going to do is bring me up a dialog box that tells me that I'm about to update my rate amounts. If I'm happy with that, I can click on OK. We are always going to go back into the rate calendar anytime that we build or change a rate and make absolutely sure that that rate has now been entered into the system. So I can pick any room type, I can pick any one of my booking channels, and I will be able to see that my rate has now been entered into the system. It's very important that you use the rate calendar so that you can catch any problems. If you haven't built your rate correctly, you'll see it immediately and you're able to go back and correct it before you have people start to make reservations on that rate. So now that we've built the rate all the way out for a year, my rates for this particular rate, my hotel rate, is basically a $99 rate from now until June. I'm going to raise the rates in June through till September, and then they go back down to the $99 rate. So basically, building the rate from now through to the end of the year means that I don't have to build a high and a low season rate because they're already there. I can go in now and take my rate and say I wanted to raise it in June. So I'm going to go now to June the 1st, and it's going to be raised until September the 30th. So let's go through till September the 30th. And in changing this rate here, or sorry, this dates here, I'm not affecting any other rate. So my rate from today until the 30th of March is going, sorry, 30th of May is going to be staying at $99, and my October through to December is going to stay at $99. I'm only affecting this rate period. So I can go in here now and say I'm raising my rates to $150 for this period. And now I've raised those rates. I want to make sure that I update my rate amount. So I want to click on Update Rate, and then I'm going to click on Save. If you do forget to click the Update Rate Amount, what's going to happen is it will not actually save this rate. So it's very important to make sure that you update rate, and then you go ahead and save, and then click on OK to say that you do want to update that rate. And once you've updated that rate, again, we're always going to go back and check the rate calendar. We're going to pick one of my booking channels, and I want to go through now and make sure that in June that my rate has changed. So I can see here the 30th of May is still my old rate, and my new rate has changed for June. And then if I continue through, I should see that October the 1st, again, is back down to the $99 rate. So we haven't affected that rate at all within that date period. So we're back down to $99 in October. We can take this one step further as well. What we've done here is we've been changing our rate based on every single day of the week. But if I decide that in this high season, I also want to raise my rates an additional amount on the weekend, I can go ahead and do that by removing check marks from the days of the week that I do not want my rate change to apply to. So by removing my Sunday through Thursday, the rate change I'm about to make is only going to apply to Fridays and Saturdays. And if I want to raise my rate an additional amount to $200 on the weekend, I can do so by going through here and entering $200. And again, it still upholds my differential, and on my triple and quad, it's updating and upholding my additional persons as well. So I'm going to go in here and update my rate amount, click on Save. I get my confirmation that I'm just changing a rate amount, and I click on OK. And now I'm going to go back in again and check my rate calendar. And when I go in and check my rate calendar by booking channels, I can change my rate here if I want to go through to July. And now what I'm going to see is my rates will bounce through to July, and I can see that my rate is now elevated on the weekends. So again, that date range and the days of the week make sure that I don't touch anything else on the rate, only those particular days. So now we're going to go back to general as well, and we're going to look at, let's say I have the Valentine's Day weekend, and I want to go ahead and change my rate on the Valentine's Day weekend. You'll notice that if I go out of this rate and then go back into my rate wizard, and I go back into my hotel rate and use my next button to change my rates, it's going to come back with my template. So my template, as I said at the beginning, is locked to my hotel rate, so I always have it available. So now I want to go into my Valentine's Day weekend, and I want to specify that from the 13th to the 15th of February, and you'll notice that automatically RoomKey knows that this is a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday. I want to go in and I want to raise my rates on my kings and my doubles. I don't want to change it on my singles. I'm sorry, I do want to change it on my doubles, my kings, and my suite, but not on my single. So if I remove the check mark, if I unlock my grid here and remove my check mark out of my singles are going to stay at my $99 rate. But my doubles, my kings, and my suites are now going to be changed based on the change that I make here. So I'm going to go in here and change my rate. And again, because this is Valentine's Day, I'm going to change my rate to $200 a night. I'm going to make sure I remove that from here. And then I'm going to go in and select my days. And I'm going to make sure that I say update rate. And I'm going to put singles back in there. And save. And OK. And now if I go into my rate calendar, and I pick my doubles, and I look at my February rate for Valentine's Day, I'm going to see that I have raised it here, and my doubles were $10 more, so I've got my $210 rate. So it hasn't affected anything else, just my weekend rate here. I can go back and I can do another step here. So every time I've been updating and making changes to my hotel rate, it's actually been making changes to those three shadow rates that I had: my hotel rate, my GDS rate, and my hotel website. So all three of those rates have changed. So on my GDS, I'll see all of the increases that I've just put into the system. If you wanted to exclude one of your booking channels, when you're making changes, you do have the ability to remove the check mark from these booking channels. So anybody on this call that has used the old rates program in RoomKey will know that you had to build separate rates for your GDS and separate rates for your Hotel Direct in order to be able to manage them separately in as far as changing the rates per season, opening or closing, or putting minimum length of stays on rates. The new rate wizard allows us to control that all from one rate by simply using the check marks in here to assign the different changes to specific booking channels within this rate. So on this Valentine's Day rate, I want to also go in and add a length of stay so that it has to be a minimum of 2 days length of stay. So I can go in here and click my length of stay. I can take a minimum length of stay has to be 2, and let's say the maximum length of stay has to be 3. So I can go in here and assign these, and if I wanted this to apply to all of my booking channels except for my website, I can remove my hotel website. Remember, that's our ERES booking channel. So I'm only going to have those lengths of stays apply to the 2 booking channels. So I can go in and click on Save. And now it tells me that I am not changing rate amounts, but I am actually updating length of stays. So I can click on OK and update my length of stays. Now if I go back to my rate calendar, and I'm going to pick my suite, and I'm going to pick my Hotel Direct booking channel, what I'm going to see here is RoomKey is showing me in red, in these little characters at the top of the box, that it is a minimum 2, maximum 3-day booking for this period. So if anybody books on the 13th, the 14th, or the 15th, they have to book at least 2 days, and they have to have at least a 3-day stay. If I go back now and I look at my hotel website rate, when it refreshes, I'm going to see that that length of stay, minimum maximum length of stay, has not been applied to my hotel website. So that's how we can control the different booking channels from one rate. If you want to go in now and remove your length of stay, what we would do is we would go in here, we would pick our rates, and we would go in to our length of stay and clear length of stay. And basically for this date range, it's now going to go in and clear my length of stay. So I can click on Save and click on OK. And now, always going back to my rate calendar, I can go back up and look at my rate calendar for any booking channel, and I will see that my lengths of stays have now been removed for those 2 days. Let's take another look at what we can do from this screen. We can go in here as well, and we can go and look at how we can close rates out. So we have 2 options. We can either close to arrival or close rates out. So typically, the close to arrival is used by timeshare condos if you want to make sure that people are forced to arrive on either a Friday or a Saturday. So let's say for my Valentine's Day, I want to make sure that everybody arrives on the Friday for a Valentine's Day package. So I can come in here and I can close to arrival. So the days that are checked off are going to be the days that this applies to. So I want to make sure that they can arrive on a Friday. So I want to remove the check mark from Friday because I want them to be able to arrive on a Friday. But I want it to be closed on a Saturday and a Sunday. So now if I click on Close to Arrival and I save, what we're going to see is it's telling me that it's doing a Close to Arrival, which is what I want, and I click on OK. Again, back up to my rate calendar, and I'm going to look at my Hotel Direct, and I'm going to see here that these days are in red, the Saturday and the Sunday, which means that although the rate is valid, you cannot make a booking arriving on the 14th, and you cannot make a booking arriving on the 15th. Any bookings that are for that weekend have to arrive on the Friday. Again, to remove that, we would simply go in, make sure my date range is correct, and I would clear close to arrivals, and I would click on Save and check my rate calendar again. And I will be able to go in and see that it is no longer red, so I have now opened up and you can book on any day. We'll take a look now at how we are going to do a close the hotel. So when we close a rate, that actually means that no one can make a booking for that day at all. So different from close to arrival, where they can certainly still book through that date, they just can't arrive on that date. A close means that you cannot book that rate at all. So if I wanted to go in now and actually close out my Valentine's Day weekend, I can click on Close. I can go ahead and click on Save, and it's going to tell me that I'm now using a close, so I'm happy with that. And when I go up to my rate calendar and I look at my rate calendar, you'll notice that those days are now yellow, which means no one can book my hotel rate on those days. So that's how I can close out a rate. Now, absolutely, if I only wanted to close out GDS rates and nothing else, what I would have done at that point, let me go in and open my close, and we'll close just the GDS rate now. So I'm going to use my rate calendar again to check that I have removed my close for that weekend. So my days are opened up now. I'm going to go back to my general. I'm going to take the check mark out of hotel booking and hotel direct, only leave it on GDS, and I want to close this rate for my GDS. So now when I click on Save and I click on OK, I'm going to use my rate calendar again to go through and look and see that my hotel direct rate will be open. So I have nothing closed on the weekend. I'm going to check my hotel website, and I will see that that one is also open. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to check my GDS rate, and I'm going to see that my GDS rate is closed. So again, very simple for you to be able to go through and specify any changes that you do, including rate changes or arrivals, close to arrivals, or length of stay, can all be done by booking channels automatically from one screen and from one rate. So it now makes your rate management very easy and very seamless for you. Now we're going to also take a look at how we use rate tiering for Rate Wizard. So one of the things that we try to suggest to our clients is if you can build one rate, sometimes referred to as a master rate, and then tier all of your rates off of your master rate, it means that you basically only are managing one rate in your system, and you can manage all of the different booking channels for that one rate from the master rate, and it will then trickle down to any tiered rates that you have attached to that particular rate. So let's say that our hotel rate is a master rate. One of the things that I like to suggest to people is that in order for you to identify your master rates, if we go in now and edit this rate and simply put a star in front of the rate, what we're going to see is that that rate, once I update it, is now going to jump alphabetically to the top of the list because the star is, it's an alphanumeric sort, so the star will go to the top. So it's a really easy way for you to see all of your master rates will be listed at the top of the screen for you. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a new rate that is going to be tiered off of my master rate. So I'm going to go in and create a shell for that rate. So I click on my plus sign, and my plus sign is now I'm going to create, again, another standard rate. And this is going to basically be a discounted rate off of my hotel rate. So maybe I'm going to call it a 10% discount rate. Again, I can select the channels that I want this to be available to. So if I don't want it to be on my hotel website, but I want it to be able to be booked directly or through the GDS, I simply go through and remove those check marks. By default, it's going to be accessible to all room types and all of the booking channels that I have selected. If it was a non-commissionable rate, I would need to put a check mark in here. If there is no check mark, if there is a travel agent attached to any reservation that's using the 10% discount, it will be the rate set up in your travel agency module for that particular travel agent. I'm going to add my minimum 1 day and 1 person stay. I can pick a market segment here if I want. Then I can also go in here and type a description. So this is a 10% discount off my hotel rate. Okay, and now I'm going to create my shell. I'm still going to use my edit function to go in and determine who can see this 10% discounted rate. So on my client types, I do want my independent guests, and I do want my GDS guests to see this and update. Now, while we're talking about creating GDS rates, any new rates that you add into the system that are accessible through GDS, you must remember to call our RoomKey support and make sure that you ask them to please link it to your GDS supplier. So just by adding a rate here does not link it to whichever GDS you're or any of those iHotelier. You do need to ask RoomKey to go into your database, and from your database we need to go in and link those rates. So if any of you in the past have created rates and created GDS rates, but you're not seeing them on your booking channels, that would be because you did not contact RoomKey to have those rates linked. So please just remember to do that. So now with our 10% discount, we've created the shell, we've attached the different client types. Now we're going to use step 3, which is next. And in here, instead of going in and building the rate, we are going to go up to our tiered rates. And I'm going to enable my tiering. I'm going to tell RoomKey that any time that my rate that I tier off of is changed, I want my 10% discount rate to change. If I go in and add any closing or close to arrivals on my base rate, I also want it to close my discount rate. And if I apply length of stays, I also want my length of stays to be applied. Now, you don't have to check off all of these. If you don't want to close your discount rate, even if you close your base rate, you would simply remove that check mark. And if you don't want length of stays to apply to your discount, you would remove that as well. Typically, though, you would want a tiered rate to mirror your base rate with the exception that it's a 10% discount. So you would use all of the check marks here. Then we'll go in and select the rate that we want to tier off of. And you'll notice again in this screen, because we've put an asterisk in front of the hotel rate, it's caused that rate to come to the top. So I know that this is a master rate. So I'm going to click my hotel rate. So now my hotel rate is going to, or my discount rate is going to be tiered off of my hotel rate. Now we're going to tell RoomKey what percentage discount. So I'm going to put a 10% discount, and I do have the option of it being a dollar amount. So this will be a 10% dollar amount the way it looks now. Or if I click on percentage, it's now going to be a 10% discount. So it's up to you whether you want to make a rate discounted by a dollar amount or percentage. The greater than and less than sign can sometimes be challenging, and I know it is challenging to me. So what we've done is we've actually written a line down here to tell you what's happening. So with this symbol, this is a greater than symbol, so it's telling me that my 10% discount is actually 10% more than my hotel rate, which is not what I want. So now I'm going to click it to get the less than, and you'll notice that I now get a 10% less than the hotel rate. So that is exactly what I want. I still have rounding available, so if I don't mind that my hotel rate was a nice $99, nice round dollar amount, but then when I take my discount, it goes down to being, for instance, $44.35. If I don't mind having those 35 cents in there, then I would round to the closest cent. But if I'm trying to maintain my rates so that they're nice and round at a dollar value, I can put a check mark here, and this is going to round to the closest dollar. So if my rate was $150.49, then it's going to round it down to $149. And if it was $149.51, it's going to round it up to $150. So this is going to allow you to get your rates to look however you would like them to be. You always want to make sure that there is a check mark in Apply Changes in order to apply these changes. And then we are going to click on Save. And now I'm going to save those changes. We're going to, as we've done when we build a rate, always use our rate calendar and go in and click on the rate calendar, pick a room type, pick one of the booking channels, and you'll notice that hotel website doesn't show up here because when I built the shell, I said I didn't need this rate for my hotel website. So my hotel direct, and we're going to go in, and we see that this is now 10% less than my hotel direct, and we're also seeing that it has maintained those dollars and cents for me as well. So it has been tiered off of my hotel website. So that is how you can build a tiered rate. We're going to go back to the main page as well and talk about another way that we can use tiering as well. So if I have a corporate rate that I'm building, and my corporate rate happens to be identical to another rate that I have, I can certainly take that rate and tier that rate off. So for instance, I may have a rate that I've negotiated with Expedia. So let's just go in and build a rate for Expedia. I'm sorry, not Expedia, let's call it IBM. So it's going to be a corporate rate for IBM. And once I've built that corporate rate for IBM, I only want them to be able to book on our hotel website or directly, not through the GDS. So I put my minimum 1 and minimum length of stay 1, and I can create my shell. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to attach it to a client type. So the fact this is a negotiated rate, I am not going to attach it to a specific client type here. I am going to use my corporate and go in here and say that only if you are with the company IBM will you be able to see this rate. And then I'm going to update. And then I'm going to go to my next field. And on my next field, I'm going to select the dates from now until the end of the year. And by the way, this clicking on February and giving me the months is actually a Windows 7 operation. So if you have a different operating system, you may find that when you click on the dates that you will get a different looking calendar than I have, but that's just based on your operating system. So my negotiated rate is basically for all room types, and I am going to give them an $89 rate, regardless of the number of people in a room. So that is their negotiated rate. I'm going to update my rate type, and I'm going to click on Save and OK. So now I've built a rate for IBM, and I have also attached it to the IBM corporate account. So going forward, let's say Xerox comes in and they also have a negotiated rate, but it happens to be the same as the IBM rate. Instead of having to rebuild the rate, I'm going to create a shell. Again, I'm going to call it standard rate or corporate rate, and it's going to be for Xerox. It's going to be bookable on my website and Hotel Direct, and it's going to be 1 and 1. And I'm going to create this shell. Then I'm going to go in and add my client types, but in this case it's going to be a corporate type. And I'm going to click on the plus sign and select Xerox and Xerox and update. And now when I go to my Xerox rate, instead of building it, I am going to tier it off of the IBM rate. I'm going to do everything that happens to the IBM rate to the Xerox rate. But you'll notice that if I leave my calculation amount as 0 and I don't put anything in my percentage, the symbol at the end says equal to. So basically, my Xerox rate is going to be equal to my IBM rate. So that means that I've basically copied the IBM rate to the Xerox rate. I make sure that I apply changes now, and I save. And then going back up to my rate calendar, I can see that my IBM rate is going to be identical to my Xerox rate. So now, having done that, if I want to change, let's say the negotiation period is from now to the end of the year, and I want to raise that corporate rate next year, I can go in and just raise the rate on IBM, and my Xerox rate will also raise as well. So it just gives you the ability to go in and copy a rate if you want to. So let's go back and look at a new reservation here. And in my new reservation, if I select a corporate client, I'm going to see that I have my choice of my corporate companies. And if I select IBM and refresh my screen, I'm only going to see my IBM rate in here. Now, my Hotel Direct web is showing up here. If I don't want that, I need to just go back and fix that in my client types so that we don't see the hotel website one here. And if I go back up now and I change this to independent, I should be able to go in here and see my hotel website, or my hotel rate is going to show up here as well. So here's my hotel rate. And again, with a star on it, it's causing it to go to the top of the rate. I can also see my discount rate here as well, which is the one that I have tiered at a 10% off. I also have a AAA rate in here and a rack rate. So all of these are the rates that are accessible to me through client type independent. I'm going to take a moment to check and see what questions we have so far. So you said the front desk can see. So let's have a look and see how we can see that from the front desk. So if I go back into my rate for a new reservation, and I go down here and I click on rate, if you hover over the rate amount and right-click. This will show you the description that you have entered in the rate for you. The other thing that you may have not realized, you can also hover a room type and right-click on a room type, and that will also show you the description that you have entered in your rate inventory for that room as well. Let me go back and look at some more questions. Oh, I'm sorry, I see that my sound is going in and out. Sorry about that. Okay, so could you show us how it works if our hotel rates are higher on a Saturday and Sunday? Hopefully I've covered that for you. So there's a question here that says, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. What you're saying is you can actually apply a rate over another rate, which will override your $99 rate. Yes, that's absolutely right. So based on the date period, sometimes I use the analogy of an Excel spreadsheet. If you can imagine your rates day by day is almost like an Excel spreadsheet for the entire year, and then you just go in and change the cells for the Excel spreadsheet on certain date ranges and leave the rest there. That's exactly what's happening with our rates. When you put in a date range, it only applies to that date range. It will not change your rates that are already in the system that are outside of the date range that you have specified. You'd like to see how we use a wizard in the group. I can show you that. There's another question here that says, is it better to use one rate and change it through the seasons than it is to set up individual seasonal rates? My opinion is that it is better to use one rate, because if you use seasonal rates, you're getting into booking multi-rates on a reservation. You also are opening yourself up to potentially not capturing all the revenue that you need to. And if it's one rate, it's much easier for you to make the reservation, because you'll be able to see if you have 3 or 4 days, it's going to show you the different rates for each day. So if you can see my screen now, I'm going to go in and make a booking for February the 12th for 5 nights and pick my hotel rate. And if I pick my hotel rate, as I cycle through, you're going to see, oh, that's interesting. Let me go back and see what I've done with my hotel rate. It looks like it's not showing me the changes that I made in my hotel rate. Okay, so I do have that $200 rate on my hotel rates. Oh, here we go. That's better. So if you have, see how I've changed the rate? You can see the different change in here. So I'm able to book right through seasons this way. So if someone was coming in and they crossed seasons, it would automatically show me here that I would have a variable rate. And I'm sure, as you, most of you know, this rate that's being displayed here is an average rate. So you don't really want to quote this rate. You want to make sure that you always use the daily rates. But you can say that, you know, the rate changes on the weekend, but it averages out to 184. But don't quote this rate, because they'll see on their confirmation that they will get $109 and a $210 rate. But this certainly would simplify your booking through seasons, because it would just make streamline, and you wouldn't have to use the multi-rates. And also, you don't have to maintain multiple rates. Let's go back and look at another question. We have a question here about the different occupancies. We have different occupancy 2 and 4. How does that work with the grid when entering the base rate? So as long as if you set your differential up to include your difference per person based on triple and quad occupancy, when you change your base rate, that will trickle down automatically. If you didn't include it in your base rate, what you would need to do, so if you didn't include it in your template, you would have to include it in your base rate. So let's just take my hotel rate here and go to next. So if you hadn't included it here and you just left this as 20 and 20, sorry, if you just left it as 10, 10, 10, 10, up here when you actually put in your base rate, you would have put in here $99, and then you could use 100 here, which is the extra $10, or 109 here, which is the extra $10 for your triple occupancy, and you could go across here and do 119. That would only be used if you did not include in your differential the difference between the extra person. So you can certainly include it up here as well, and then that will trickle down for you. I hope that answers your question. And then the next question we have. So we've got here, so for example, we want to run a 20% off special and advertise online, but be able to track if the person comes from TripAdvisor or Facebook or even off our website. And how should we set this up? So you don't necessarily have to do that, because in RoomKey, when you make a booking, you can use a source of business, and we can assign source of businesses to different booking channels. So you could use source of business to track whether it came from TripAdvisor or Facebook. Okay, if you want to delete a rate in RoomKey, so we don't suggest that you go through and delete rates. The reason for that is because historically they are attached already to reservations. If you wanted to get rid of a rate so that you don't use it going forward, you would go into the rate, you would go into the client types, and then you would go in here and remove your booking channels. Once you've removed your booking channels, there is basically no channel to show, so therefore this rate will no longer appear when you go to create a new reservation. The other thing that you would want to do potentially is alphabetically. You'll notice that I have gone into some of my rates here and put a Z or Z in front of them. What that's going to do is force that rate to go to the bottom of your screen. So therefore, it's not in all of these rates when you're working with active rates. So I like to remove the booking channels. So from this Gulf stay, you'll see I've removed all of my booking channels, and also put a Z in front, and that will make sure that you don't see that rate anymore. Yes, I have a question here that says, if I'm inputting my seasonal rates by month instead of doing a full year and adding new rates over, does it work the same for guest booking through the rate changes? So I presume that you mean that when you are in here booking a rate or making a rate, you're simply putting in the first month's rate plus the rates and then saving them, and then within the same rate you go in and do another month and then save it and then use the same rate and do another month. If that's the case, yes, as long as the rate name is the same, it doesn't matter what the rate is for any period within there. It is just one reservation. It just books right the way through, so you won't have any problem with doing that. Okay, the NTS on the Rate Wizard is number to sell, and it only applies to our ERES. So if you build a rate and you only want to ever sell 3 AAA rates through ERES on a daily basis, that is where you would go in and apply nights to sell. So you would go in here and you would put in a date range. So as soon as you put a date range in here, let's take that February date range again. Then you can select number to sell, and you only want to sell 4 online. You can change that to 4 and save, and OK. And now when I go into my rate calendar, you'll see the little number 4 in the bottom of the square. So this rate has a minimum 2-day stay, and we can only book 4 of them. And after that, on the website, it will no longer book anymore. Does deactivating a rate affect reservations that are already made in the system? No, it should not. If you already have a rate made in your system and then you deactivate it, it basically means going forward you can no longer book that rate, but it shouldn't have any effect on the other rates. Can you increase your rate starting on a specific date? Absolutely. It would simply be a case of you going back into here to the General tab. And if I wanted to increase my rates starting as of tomorrow, I can certainly go in here. Now, just remember that if I do starting tomorrow, going forward, it's going to overwrite anything else that's in the system. So if I had raised my rate, for instance, on Memorial Day, and then I came into this rate and said, I want to raise my rate by $20, it would raise the rate by $20 for this entire date range. So you need to be very careful because it will go over the top. So if you want to do that, you need to go in and look at each of your segments that you already have and go into each of that date range and raise it by $20. If you just had one rate and there was nothing in there that was raising or lowering the rate for any date period, then certainly from now through to the end of the year, you could just go in and change the rate so that it was raised by $10. Now, as far as can you just put $20 in here? No, that would be a $20 rate. So you would not be able to do that. So there is no way, I guess specifically, I guess the answer to that question is no. To change it by $20, you'd have to go into each of your rate periods and change the rate by $20 in order to get a $20 rate increase. Okay, next question is, we haven't discussed lockoffs because it applies specifically to ERES. And no, if you've created a rate that's set off as a lockoff plan, we cannot remove that lockoff. Basically, you need, if that rate is not functioning properly for you, you need to remove all of the client types, all the booking channels, and rebuild a new rate. And so the lockoff on the Rate Wizard main page, if we go in here and look at the Rate Wizard, it only applies to ERES. So it only applies to our ERES. And in the lockoff here, it allows you to create rates for rooms that can be sold as 2 separate rooms or can be combined together to create 1 room, but you have to have separate rates, whether it's sold as 1 room or if it's sold as 2 rooms. If you want further information on lockoff, I would suggest that you can go to our help function and look up self-serve help on lockoff, or if you want to do a session, you can have your manager contact RoomKey and we can set up a session for you specifically to go over lockoffs. Now, I'm going to take a moment because someone did ask a question about groups. So in our new group module, we have actually set up the ability for you to be able to take a pre-assigned group rate, pull it into your rate, and customize your rate. So I'm going to very quickly set up a group here. Just bear with me while I set this up, please. So once we get to the rates now, you'll notice that there is a button in the corner here for rates so that you can get directly to the Rate Wizard from here. So I'm going to go in and show you how the suggestion going forward with this new feature is that we can go in to the Rate Wizard and build a rate for groups. Just want to fix this because this is attached to the group client type, which is why that rate showed up. Okay, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to build a group rate. And I'm actually going to take my hotel rate and discount it for my group, so I don't have to build the whole thing. So I'm going to go in here, standard rate. It's going to be my group rate. I want it to be able to book through Hotel Direct, minimum, maximum 1 day. Create. I'm then going to go into my next, and I'm going to tier this off of my hotel. And I'm not going to have it open and close, and I am going to have it equal to my hotel rate. So it's going to be exactly the same as my hotel rate. So once I've built that rate, so if we go back into Rate Wizard, you'll see that there's a rate there now called Group. Now I'm going to go back into my group and open up my group and go into Rates. And from here, I can go directly to my Rate Wizard. So I'm going over to my Rate Wizard, and I'm going to select my group rate. And from here, to attach my group to this rate, I go to the Edit button, I go up to my groups this time, and I will be able to see that there is the group that I've just built. So I can update that. And when I get out of here, I'm going to go directly back to my group. And now what I'm going to see is that my group rate has now been attached here. So once my group rate is attached here, I can actually go in and override my group rate. So when I click on override, oops, let me just set up a default rate first of all. So now when I override my group rate, what it does is it shows me what the rate is on those nights for my regular hotel rate. And now I can come up here and I can go in and I can change the rate. So if I'm giving this group a rate of $89 a night, I can go in and put $89 in here. And when I save this, I have now given this rate to the group of $89. It has not affected this rate. So in other words, the rate that was posted for my group rate is still going to be that rate. It's just for this group, it's taken that rate and changed it into an $89 rate. So now if I go in to block my rooms, I'm going to see that I have an $89 rate for all of my room types. Now, I could certainly have done a different rate per room type if I had wanted to. I can have multiple groups on the same day still using that group rate type, and it will not change all of the other groups. So basically what it's doing is it's taking my group rate, which is a standard rate, and taking sort of a subset of it and putting it into the group. And then I can change it just for that group, but it leaves my original group rate intact for the next person to use for another group. So what that means is it cuts down on you having to have 100 different rates for 100 different groups. You can just have one rate for one group. Sorry, you can have one rate for all groups. You can also, if you wanted to, if you had some standard rates, so for instance, let's say if someone is taking 1 to 20 rooms, it's this rate, and 20 to 30 rooms, it's a different rate. You can certainly go into the rate wizard and build those rates and pull those rates into your groups, and then you wouldn't even have to change the ability of how you use your groups. I'm just going to look. We have some more questions now. We've taken a look at groups. Okay, so a couple of the questions that I have now are actually not pertaining to groups, but are pertaining to those of you that have built rates already in the old rate system. So as I said when we started, we will be getting rid of the rate, that old rates module, so you will need to move all your rates across. There is a companion session that's taking place on Friday, which directly addresses how to take rates that were built in the old rate module and get them imported into the new rates module. So I would strongly suggest that you do have the rates, do get yourself registered for the session on Friday if you want to learn how to go ahead and import your rates. I do see another question here from Abraham. What is the difference between the yellow and the red highlight? I presume that you are speaking about when we look at the rate calendar. So when we look at the rate calendar, any days that are yellow indicates that that rate is closed, and if a rate is red, it means that no rate has been set up yet. So if I look at this, you'll notice that prior to today, because this rate started today, the dates are red. That means that there is no rate set up. So I think that I have answered all of the questions so far. I'm going to give you a couple of more minutes if you would like to packages Okay, so packages are not rate wizards. So what we're going to have to do is, if you need information on packages, if you can contact RoomKey, we can set up a session with you individually on packages. Unfortunately, they are not covered as part of the rate wizard. So B, you put a question above. I just need to find that question. Here we go. Let's say in the past I had a rate plan called AAA, and now you want to update to local residents. Should I build a new rate plan, or can I override the rate plan AAA with a new rate plan name, or will it cause discrepancies? So first of all, if all these rates were built in one, so when the AAA rate, B, I need you to answer this question. Was the AAA rate originally built only as a GDS rate, and now you want it to be available for other people to use, so hotel direct, or are we talking about changing the client types? Let me just see if I can find. So rates cannot be deleted. There's a question here about can we delete rates. No, you can just inactivate them. I use the term old rate wizard. I'm sorry, that was a misnomer. It's actually the old rates module and the new rates wizard. Can manual rates be used once rates wizard is in place? Yes, there's absolutely no change to manual rates whatsoever. When you are importing rates from your old rate module, if you had a GDS, best available rate, and you had a hotel direct, best available rate, those two rates can be merged together to be one rate in RoomKey with the different booking channels on it. Yes, you can change the name of a rate altogether, and it will go through and change any pre or past rates, reservations to that name as well. How many companies can you create a rate wizard, a rate for in Rate Wizard? As many as you want. There's no limit to the number of rates that you can have, and you can attach as many companies as you want to any one rate. I'm going to give you a few more moments if there are any any questions that I have finished. Sorry, before I finish, I'm going to give you a few minutes to put in any more questions. If not, I will be ending this session so that we don't go past the hour and a half, and I would hope that we can see, I will see some of you on Friday to do the rates for the import. Am I going to be able to put the same rate for a different room type in all the same rates at the same time? Yes, you will be able to do that. Okay, if there are no other questions, I thank you all very much for your participation today, and I look forward to speaking to those of you that will show up on Friday for the rate import. Thank you very much.